Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Gretchen and today I'm back with another Booker Prize long list review, and today I'm going to be talking about Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. Now, this is another book that I read prior to the long list announcement, and although I was personally happy to see that it made the list, I was a little surprised, if I'm honest. So it's not because I didn't enjoy the book, I did, but this book seems to be one that is for a very particular type of audience, and I was just really surprised that all of the judges agreed that this book should be on the long list, and especially because this book also has elements related to space and the cosmos, and we already have Orbital on the long list, which is a book entirely dedicated to space. So I found that a little shocking as well. When I was coming up with my predictions, I certainly didn't think that they would have two books that focused at all on space. But here we are, and I will say that I have been a fan of Sarah Perry since I read The Essex Serpent. I really get along with her writing style. I enjoy it very much. So when I found out that she had a new book this year, I was very excited, and when I picked it up and I read the synopsis, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little kind of underwhelmed and confused because I really wasn't sure what it is that we were really going to get out of this book, but in the end, I found that I really connected with this book and I enjoyed it, but I feel that this is going to be one of those books where a good bit of people are not going to feel the same way, and that's okay. We are all entitled to our opinions about books, and what you connect to as a reader is going to be completely different potentially from how other readers may respond to that book. So now I did a little mini review of this book already in one of my previous recap videos, and I think that I mentioned that though this was a very tough plot for me to explain, because at face value, to me, it didn't really sound that interesting. And even though I really enjoyed the book, I feel like I would still struggle to come up with a quick elevator pitch about what the book is doing and actually what it is about. But I will give it a go, and I hope that I can do it a little bit of justice. So first and foremost, this book spans a few timelines. So it starts in 1997, around the time when the Hale-Bopp comet was passing by. And we meet two friends, Thomas and Grace, and Thomas is a writer. He works for his local paper in Essex, and he is around, they say he's middle age. I think he's right at 50. He lives alone. He's been single his entire life, and although he is a man of faith, strong faith, I would say, he has a secret life that he lives out in London when he visits, and he indulges in that from time to time. And like I said, it's a secret. And then we have Grace, who I believe at the beginning of the book, we pick up when she's like 17 or 18. I can't remember exactly, but Thomas has known Grace since she was very young. She lost her mother at a very young age, and Grace's father is actually the pastor at the church that Thomas attends, so Thomas has been around to watch her grow. So her and Thomas have developed this very unlikely friendship, especially given their age gap of over 30 years. Now, through a work assignment, Thomas becomes fascinated with the comet, and in that process he unearths a bit of a mystery about this 19th century astronomer that supposedly haunts one of the manors in their local town. And through this search and through this mystery that he uncovers, he meets someone that wants to help him solve the mystery. And then as this story progresses, both Thomas and Grace find themselves falling in love with people. And as they pursue these relationships, it starts to put a wedge between Thomas and Grace's friendship, and eventually something happens and Grace decides that she is going to leave their Essex town and she goes to London. Now, as I mentioned before, this book spans a few timelines, and all of them, the three of them, are all related to some type of cosmic or celestial activity that is happening. So all three of the major phases in their lives are kind of in line with the cosmos, which I thought was interesting and neat to think about. And although this book does have plot, for me, this book was less about the mystery and more about the relationships and the interactions between the characters, as well as their inner dialogues and their inner secrets and their inner secret lives. And I was really invested in these characters, especially Thomas. I had a major soft spot for Thomas's character. The way that he struggles with his religion and how it contradicts with the church's idea of what he should be as a man and his sexuality. And I think that one of the other things that I really loved about this book was its focus on unrequited love. And that's not something that I see a lot of in at least the books that I'm picking up. And of course, I know there are lots of books out there that cover it, but I just feel like Perry did such an amazing job of painting that picture of how lonely it can be loving someone if they don't return those feelings, or if they aren't even aware that they are loved by that person. And so many books that I read are all about that happy ending and love being a shared experience, but not everyone is lucky enough to get that. And I just thought that it was covered so well in this book, and it was so sad, and it really touched me because of that message. And just because your love isn't returned doesn't mean that your love is wasted or meaningless. And I also really liked that there was a lot of talk about faith and religion under the backdrop of all of these cosmic events that were happening. As a reader, it allowed me to contemplate that whole faith versus science versus both kind of argument, and it gave me a lot to ponder and consider. And yeah, I love when books can make you think, and this was definitely a book that did that for me. And all of that being said, I specifically liked this book because I had an emotional response to it, and I very comfortably can say that if you're a reader that can't connect with either Grace or Thomas as a character, you're probably going to dislike this book, and you're probably going to find it tedious and over the top. And I think that that's definitely going to be evident in the prose. I find her writing to be very lush, and it's something that I personally like to take my time with. I find myself reading her books very slowly. It's not because I find the content difficult to absorb. I just like to savor her language and the words that she's using, and I find it to be very soothing, and there's also a little dash of whimsy to it that I love, and I could easily get lost in her writing, and I do every time I pick up one of her books. And I think I mentioned this in the first little mini review that I did in a recap, is that this book was modern. It was set, I mean, it starts in 1997, but it does go the whole way up through 2018. So it's a modern book, but it felt old to me, and it kind of had to do with that language. So the words that Thomas used in his dialogue were not something that you would expect to hear a person in a modern conversation saying. And not only did that add a bit to the book's mystery for me, it further solidified to me how timeless some of the themes that Perry was introducing to us are. We're always going to have those questions of faith. We're always going to have those love stories and the pursuit of love. And I thought that that was something that was really evident as I was reading this book too. But just playing devil's advocate, I can definitely see that there are going to be a lot of readers that quickly lose patience with it and beg for it to be over and to be put out of their misery, because I will 100% admit that the author draws things out longer than necessary and more than she should, but that was part of what I loved in it because I was such a fan of the writing. I wanted to savor it and I didn't want it to end, but that is me. And once again, there's going to be a lot of readers that don't want to dedicate the time. So you really kind of have to know what kind of reader you are, whether that's something you could really get immersed in or whether that's something that's just going to grate on your nerves. And if it would, just steer clear from this book. I will say that if you were a fan of The Essex Serpent, I think that you're probably going to get along with this book too. I felt like it had a lot of the same themes. I felt the same bleakness with this one too that The Essex Serpent had. And of course, we also have that little bit of a mystery, which adds a bit of the supernatural, and it brings kind of a brooding quality to the book. So all of those things that you felt while reading The Essex Serpent, I had the same response to this book with. So I definitely think that if you enjoyed that one, you'll like this one too. And there's also a nod to The Essex Serpent in this book, which was totally unexpected. I really love when authors in their future works can kind of weave a little bit of the narrative or a character or some type of reference to an older book within their new one. And that was really kind of a fun Easter egg to find out. So all in all, I really loved the time that I spent with this book, but I struggle to recommend it for all of those reasons I mentioned before. And this is definitely going to be a hit or a miss book for readers. I'm not thinking that this is going to get to the short list, but I still do have some more books to finish, so we'll see if there is a spot for it. But so far, I'm thinking probably not, but we'll see. I'm curious to know whether or not you read this book and whether you enjoyed it. And also, if you did enjoy it, were you also a fan of The Essex Serpent? So that's my question for you. And until we read again, bye!